Well, the Prime Minister is saying that he will stay on as Liberal leader. That's despite some calls from within the party for him to step down. This following the loss of a historically Liberal riding in Toronto. CBC's Heather Hiscock sat down with Justin Trudeau today after the Memorial Day ceremony in St. John's. Here's what he had to say.
Listen, there's always going to be lots of reflection after a tough loss, but there's also so much to do, and I am committed to doing the work of building a better Canada every single day. So I look forward to next year's Canada Day, and I look forward to many more Canada Days. This is the kind of work that we have to remember really matters. There are tough days and there are better days, but Canadians are strong and resilient, and that's why we keep moving forward.
Well, for more, we spoke with Lori Williams, a political science professor at Mount Royal University in Calgary. She told us why it's so tough for Liberals to decide between sticking with Justin Trudeau or finding a new leader.
Well, there is a lot of pressure, but there isn't an obvious path forward. The two main choices are to stick with Trudeau into the next election, hope that the economy turns around, inflation comes down, interest rates come down, and they've got a better chance in the next election. But Justin Trudeau is coming toward what most politicians experience as a best before date. 9 or 10 years in is usually about all they can sustain, simply because their negatives start to outweigh their positives. There's only so much political capital, as Justin Trudeau's own dad pointed out, that you have. And it's basically about spending it while you're in office, and eventually you run out. That said, it may be better for the party to stick with him and then start anew with a new leader. And it may be a difficult thing for a new leader to want to take this on, given that the chances of winning the next election are not looking great at this stage of the game. Having said all of that, it is possible that a new leader, especially someone from outside of government, could come in, sort of rejuvenate, redirect the party, give a new vision, if you like, for the future. And particularly if they're not vulnerable to being defined by the opposition, that leader would be up against a leader in the opposition, that is Pierre Poilievre, whose negative numbers are a little higher than you usually see in someone who hasn't been in office at this stage of the game. So there is still a strategic set of possibilities here that is just not clear at this stage whether the better route to go is with Trudeau or with someone else.
Well, and Lori, I just want to pick up on something that you said. Somebody outside the party, you think, outside of government, do you think would possibly be an option as opposed to Trudeau? You don't think that there's anybody within cabinet right now that could replace him?
There are lots of people that are interested, lots of very talented people, and under other circumstances, I think they'd have a much stronger chance. But of course, because they've been at the cabinet table, all of the front runners that we're looking at, they've all been at the cabinet table. They're all associated with unpopular policies and with an unpopular government. It's really difficult for them to sort of hit the reset button with a lot of credibility. They would be vulnerable to all of those attacks that have been so effective against the Liberals up until this point. And so I think somebody from the outside, and people are touting Mark Carney, but he's not just a new face. He's somebody who's already got a high profile. He's somebody who's got an enormous amount of economic and financial credibility. And on that count, because of his private sector experience or his Bank of Canada or Bank of England experience, he's in a position to really challenge Pierre Poilievre, because Pierre Poilievre does not have that kind of experience or gravitas to bring to the table. So it looks to me, at least at this stage of the game, that somebody from outside would have a better chance. Now, whether they would have a chance of winning the next election or not is an open question.
Well, the Prime Minister says he is committed to remaining on in that role, and that essentially he's not going anywhere. And up until this point, his cabinet is really rallying around him, but there are several MPs that have signed this letter calling for an immediate in-person National Caucus meeting. Trudeau has declined to comment. What do you make of that decision?
Well, I mean, because he is one of the two main routes the party can go, of course, he's got to say that he's committed to Canada's future, that he's in this fight for the sake of Canadians, and that he has a positive view for the future. And again, because he is one of two very credible paths forward, of course he's got to say that, but he also has to respond to these concerns amongst his caucus. and we've seen him listening to those concerns when they got pretty severe, when the issue over home heating oil in Atlantic Canada became such a big issue. He basically responded to that in a way that he's been paying for since. But the fact that he was listening to very concerned caucus members it indicates that there can be pressure that comes from within that pushes him in that direction, and it makes sense for him to sit down with those caucus members and discuss with them his vision for the future and to consider the other options that are available to him.
Lori, I've got to run here. One more quick one, though. How long can the Liberal Party afford this to be the conversation, as opposed to talking about policy, the conversation being about the leader?
Right. They've got to settle this one way or the other, probably within a couple of months, simply because the next election is a year and a half away, a little less actually. And because of that, they have to have a pretty clear sort of unified stance to bring to voters. And they've got to have a strategy. Some kind of change is necessary, maybe shaking up cabinet, changing up policy. Those haven't worked very well so far. So I think they've got to look very seriously at all of their options and settle this question by the end of the summer.
Lori Williams, a political science professor at Mount Royal University, talking to us from Calgary.